¿Dónde está Lily? Lily está en la biblioteca. No. Lily está en la cocina. No, también. All those high school textbooks teaching Spanish around the globe need to be edited because Lily is not in the kitchen. She's not in the library. The realistic reply should be Lily and all of her sim racing friends in Spain are in front of their streaming devices, excited to see if their countryman, Jaume Torres, can do it again and surprise a very talented field of drivers by getting his second tour win. From Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache, it is the MX-5 World Tour Round 2 of 11 on the Season 17 schedule. And you, Lily and all of her amigos, can witness the simulated Mazda action live as it happens right here on the Global Sim Racing channel via the iRacing Esports Network. From the birthplace of the Bossa Nova, hello and welcome to the Sim Sports News Countdown to Green, streaming your way on GSRC via IESN. Johan Vandevelde joining yours truly, Bill Soupson, to bring you our Bird's Eye View. Joe Peak has director duties armed with cameras provided by Dougie Beard. All right, Johan, Donington put on quite a show in the season opener. Now, past experience says that today's track should do no different.
Absolutely, this place always provides some great racing, and with this place we mean Autódromo José Carlos Pachi, probably the best known racetrack in South America. It was constructed in 1940 in Sao Paulo and has been hosting Formula 1 races since 1972. And most people know the track, of course, as Interlagos, which literally means between the lakes, and people who visited the track know why. It literally lays between two big bodies of water called Guarapiranga and Billings that provide the metropolis with water and electricity. In real life, that actually has a big effect on racing, as the bodies of water create a sort of microclimate capable of generating sudden changes in weather. Now today, the drivers don't have to worry about water on the track, but more about not losing the draft on track. In the MX-5, Interlagos has a very long section where draft is super important, all the way from turn 13 Juncao to turn 6 Ferradura. Between that, drivers have to master a tight infield section where overtaking is almost impossible. In other words, a great deal of draft and a lot of opportunity to lose it in between. Now before we go to qualifying, let's see how that looks like on track. So strap in as we take you for a lap in the GSRC Mazda MX-5 around Interlagos.
Alright, we've got Amjad Yaman in the GSRC MX-5, so let's do a lap around Interlagos. Coming down to turn 1, the Senna S provides a great opportunity for an overtake, but attack and defense can be a complicated affair with the way the track falls away and switches direction. Regardless of the outcome, at the end you're dumped onto the Curva do Sol, which is flat out in this little MX-5. And this sets you up for the next best place for a pass at the end of the Reta Aposta. This stretch will provide a good draft, allowing you to close in or even get side by side with your opponent. Coming up is the braking for Descida del Lago, and you really want the inside line to have a chance at getting by the driver ahead of you. The car will want to understeer as we head back downhill, and once again, you won't be lifting for a bit as the car slides its way through 5. Drift it back to the left and get the car lined up for Ferradura. This double apexer is fairly fast, meaning it's going to be tough to force a too-wide situation. I wouldn't really recommend trying to pass here unless you're desperate. Thankfully, there's lots of paved runoff around the outside. Quickly, you're going to get on the brakes for 8, which kicks off the slow, winding technical section of the circuit. Each corner requires you to set the car up for the following one, so don't worry about maximizing the exit as much as where you position your car. These curbs are very wide and flat though, so feel free to use as much as you can. Now we hit the Bico de Pato, which is a decreasing radius hairpin. Late apex this baby, and then swing it across the track immediately for the best line through 11. Once again, the curbing on the outside is usable, so make the best of it for a nice wide entry into Juncao. Every drop of speed you can carry through this turn will pay dividends on your lap time and for the opportunity to pass into 1. Without much power in the engine of the MX-5, this long uphill climb needs you to keep your momentum up. At this point, it's all about minimizing your steering input, or if you've got a competitor sizing you up, positioning your car for defense. Hopefully, you can hold them off in the braking zone, but as we come across the line, you've finished a lap around Interlagos.
That was one lap here around Autódromo José Carlos Pachi. Now, before we go take a look at how the points are standing, remember that the countdown to green is sponsored by Sim Sports News. The Sim Sport News team of Jacob Tufts and Gianni Quintilier is one of the first dedicated sim racing news websites that cover all broadcast series on iRacing. For more information, go to simsportnews.com. Now, Bill, you're taking us for a look around the points, starting with the Pro category.
Let's do it, and this is sponsored by Huizenveld, and we'll look at that right now. Jaume Torres, we talked about him. He got 100 points for the win, plus 9 bonus points. That makes up his 109-point total. 4-time champion, Sonny Catch Me If You Catch, and finished in second in the opener. His Asbury Motorsports compadre, Marcelo Pajan, is in third. Former AM driver, Anwar Burrell Smith, is a point off the podium. And how about this? Frenchman Christophe Sanchez was 7th in the opener, but bonus points got him onto the top 5 graphic. Johan, how about our other championship?
The M Championship is sponsored by SimSport News, and in that championship, it's Stefanov leading the way. He scored an 11th position last time around in Donington, netting him 79 points in total. He's sitting high and dry there because the gap between him and number 2, Michael Wardman, is a massive 21 points. Now, Michael, of course, only finished in P20, but he as well got a nice haul of bonus points based on his Masp incident. And that moved him ahead of a lot of other M drivers who finished in front of him in the UK. Robert Wieliga was 15th, he's classified in P3 in the standings, 22 behind his countrymen. Derek Holland and Joe McDonald can be found in the top 5 as well, P4 and P5 respectively.
We're always picking up new viewers here on GSRC, coming your way on IESN. For those, Johan, why don't you tell them a little bit about the event details?
This is season 17 of the MWT Championship, round 2 of round 11 rounds. You're nice and early in this championship. The race around Interlagos will be 24 laps. In this time, the drivers have open setups. That means they can tweak it just to their liking, but they have shrunken fuel cells, so they have to make one pit stop in the race. And there's no incident cap, but the drivers do have, like we mentioned before, some bonus points to keep in mind. If you get a lot of off-tracks, a lot of those incident points, you will forfeit those bonus points, and that can actually cost you a few positions in the end.
If you haven't done so yet, you can join the iRacing community and compete online against thousands of players in the world's most realistic racing simulation. The best of the best in the iRacing World Championship, as well as many top private leagues like the one you're watching right now, are showcased right here on the iRacing eSport Network. And GSRC is proud to be part of the IESN stable of broadcasters. All right, up here in our GSRC broadcast booth, it is very comfortable with our air conditioner going. But to get an idea of what it is like on the track, let's go down to pit lane and we'll talk to Adam Lindgren, who's going to be our pit reporter today. How's it feel out there?
It is hot out here. The air temperature is 74 degrees, so it's nice and calm, but the track temperature, on the other hand, is 98 degrees Fahrenheit, or 37 degrees Celsius for our Over the Seas viewers. This is a toasty race, and as you can see on track, people are going to be struggling a lot to maintain traction around these big winding corners. The high speeds of this track on the long stretches are going to keep them pushing out wide, and then when they get on the gas, they're going to have a hard time catching their grip coming out of those tight hairpins, especially off the final corner onto the long back straight.
Perfect timing for us here on GSRC. All of the business is out of the way. We've gone through the points, talked about the track, talked about the drivers, talked about the weather. Now let's talk about qualifying as they're out there working it right now. Our top practicer, well, that was who was our fastest qualifier? I guess Steven Van Ostrel. Look at that, Johan. That's a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't expect Steven to be up there, but he had a blistering practice time of 1:51.4. 2/10 clear of his nearest rival. That was Marcelo Pajan that time around, but he's coming over the start finish straight now around the last corner, turn 15. Little hill that he has to go up to. He tracks out completely, though. He doesn't go all the way to the pit wall to minimize the track that he has to cover, and you can see that maybe in his lap time of 1:52.3. That's almost a second slower, Bill, than he was in practice. So Stefan van Opstal, I think there's maybe a little more that we can expect from him, but to be honest, it might also been a little bit of draft. That quick lap time that we saw from him was in the draft of our race winner last time around, Damasas Torres, and that actually might have helped him to get that P1 position in practice.
Yeah, practice time's a little bit misleading because you can get out there with your teammates and get a tow. Qualifying is not that case. They are out there by themselves. Yes, they're all out there at the same time, but they don't get to share the track with a partner. They don't get a tow right now. Looking at currently sitting at the top, there is Gianni Quintelier. You heard his name mentioned, part of that SimSport News group of drivers.
Yeah, and he can write about himself soon, I think, because that lap time that he put in is a very good one. No, I mean it, that's a really good lap time. This qualifying time of 1:51.8 would have put him third in the standings in practice. However, there's two people going quicker than him in a matter of a few seconds. And the leader of them, who else? Damases Torres. He puts in a 1:51.6 in his first lap time, puts him 1/10 clear of Nick Thiessen in P2. That's a very good opening lap from Torres.
Well, Lily is happy in Spain as her countrymate sits on the pole right now. Nick Thiessen in second. A couple big names that are not here today, at least so far. We don't see Sonny Canchin or Robert Hartley. That should be interesting. It opens it up a little bit for some of these other guys to show what they can do.
Absolutely. Well, still some other big names that are here on track. Marcelo Pagnan is one of them. He just started his first timed lap, so actually a little bit late that the Italian starts driving, getting underway. Stefanov, our race winner last time around in the amateur category, he is here as well, luckily. He's currently sitting at P17, a little bit further down the order, and that's surprising because he was the quickest M driver in practice. But the first qualifying lap that he did, a 1:53.1, wasn't that quick. This time around he hugs it all the way to the pit line. Can he go quicker? He can go a little bit quicker. 1:53.0, slightly quicker. That puts him way down the order in the amateur category. I think he's actually P6 there.
Right, our top amateur is actually not out on the track right now. Michael Workman, who made his series debut last round. He got that 20th position. He's currently sits in 7th, our fastest amateur so far. 28 names I see on the entry list. 23 have put in qualifying times.
Yeah, several drivers are still making laps. Jean-François Penoy, we see him on track at the moment. He's currently sitting in P10. He has put in a 1:52.3 in his first lap time. He was actually dead even with Stefan Verop, so he needs to win 1,000 of a second to beat him for P9. And he actually does so, but quite a few more. 6th place for Jean-Franc there.
Pino was happy in the forum. He races out of France, and he has a countrymate now racing with him, as is Christophe Sanchez, also racing out of France. So he says he's not the only Frenchman out there. Qualifying is still going on here. We have a little bit of time.
Yeah, there's a few drivers that opted to start very late in the qualifying runs, not the least Marcelo Pagnan. He is coming across start-finish line for his first timed lap, actually puts him immediately in P3, blistering lap for Pagnan there, a 1:51.6. Now, that's actually only 29 thousandths of a second behind Torres, so that's barely anything. Blink once and you miss it that he has to win in his second lap time to put himself in pole position.
This series really good at coming up with the algorithm that splits the pros and the amateurs. Right now, our top 8 are all pros. Again, that first amateur, Michael Workman, who's sitting in pit lane.
There's a few amateur drivers that are, well, I wouldn't always say, they sound me a bit denigrated, but punching above their weight, it seems like. Michael Wardman sitting right between the pro drivers, Daniel Jerez Juan as well. Those drivers must be very content with the qualifying times because they're splitting some pro drivers. They will not be happy that they're starting behind a few amateur drivers.
Looking at a former, we were there on Kip Stephen, who was the former AM champion, who has now been promoted up into the pros. He went a little bit wide, so Stevens is not going to get a time in. Here's Titilli, one of the new names in the series. Looking to get in a time.
Yeah, with around 1.5 minutes left, there's not a lot of time. Only one opportunity for Maxime Titilli to actually get a lap. There's only 2 drivers that haven't set a qualifying time yet. Maxime Titilli is one of them. The other one is Joe McDonald, but it seems like he has already left the session. So there will be one driver not setting a qualifying time, not participating with us. So a nice field of 26 drivers here. Very full at Interlagos.
It's too bad that Joe wasn't able to race with us. It was nice to see him sitting 5th in the AM Champions. Good to see he's a veteran of the series. Nice to see him represented on one of the graphics. Let's see if Titilli can get in this time. He's got to hustle. He's working. Coming out of corner number 399, going up to the pits. Nothing in front of him but the start-finish line. Should be able to get there.
We could see him in Jungao getting very wide, missing the apex completely by 1 or 2 car whips. And almost getting an off track on the exit as well. Let's see if this lap actually counts as he comes across the start-finish line. It does count, a 153.8, moves him up a few positions to 21st position overall.
That gives everybody that is going to race a qualifying time. Joe McDonald's not going to have one. He's not going to race with us. 26 drivers on the starting grid. And I think with a standing start, we can go ahead and get those to you right now. So let's go ahead and look at the front row. It is, again, Jaume Torres, who won last time out, looking to go 2 in a row. He's going to be the inside of Gianni Quintilier. Row 2 is the Italian driver, Marcello Pajan. He's going to be flanked by Nick Thiessen. Travis Swanke, the Ohio driver, is in 5th position inside of David Hampson. The next row is Jean Franchino and Kip Stevens, the former amateur championship. 9th and 10th go to the rookie, Michael Wortman, inside of the longtime veteran, the Sheriff, Jordy Fike. Johan?
From P1 in practice to double ones in qualifying, Steven van Opstal starts on the inside of row 6. Behind him is P2 in the amateurs, Daniel Juan. Nicolas Berger can be found on P13, just in front of Christoph Sanchez. Hugh Willison starts in P15 in front of Björn de Vos. Another driver in the amateur category, Derek Holland, starts in 17th position. The inside of row 9, he's being flanked by Stef Veenhoven. The last 2 drivers in the top 20, John Miller the first and Jean-Marie Fugu in P20.
In blackjack, it's Maxime de Tilly. He's going to be inside of the series organizer, Jeroen Ursum, in the double duck spot. Maurice Wirtz back in 23rd. How about this? Trip the Aerosmith. He's not fast, but he's notorious for being clean. Racing back there in 24th. Good to see him in the field. Mickey Key in 25th, and the last car out on the track, newcomer, Franz Janssen. 26 names, 26 drivers on the grid. Let's have a good one as we are round 2. MX-5 World Tour season. That's right, count them up, 17, baby. We've been around for a long, long time. As we get a little bit, we pass over the top of the grid right now. Lights are up. You can see that yellow car of Taurus. Yeah, they're at the chicken steak, covering on the cows. The horses are out of the barn for round number 2, and it is the Spaniard, Jaume Torres, out in front. Gianni Quintilier going to tuck in a second. A battle for third. Nick Thiessen on the inside. Marcelo Pajan is going to try to get the momentum to work around the outside. They remain side by side through one, heading towards the center S. Rounding out your top 5. Watching the whole thing, Travis Swanke.
Still side by side, no, not side by side. Single file they go. Travis Swanke checks up a little bit because of that. David Hampson tries to make it side by side on the exit of the center S's. As they run down towards the Interlagos, they're still side by side. David Hampson is in the draft of Marcelo Pajan, but he has the outside to worry about. And on the inside, braking slightly late, it's Travis Swanke making the difference, getting that P5 position back.
Early days, boys. Wiser minds prevails. Hampson backs out in 6th. Back half of your top 10 rounded by Kip Stevens, Jordy Fike in a battle with Jean Franchino, and the top 10 is closed out by Christoph Sanchez racing out of France.
The back of the grid, Jean-Marie Fugo went around. He had a horrible start as well, got completely bogged down once the field got going. So horrible start for Jean-Marie there. He's continuing the race from last place.
They get single file for the most part, a little bit 2x2 farther back. The top 15 so single files, they work through the technical section down into the duckbill for the first time. It continues to be the Spaniard looking to go 2 for 2. It is Torres out in front with Quintilier chasing. A great run from Gianni Quintilier. It's unusual to see him so far up. He's quick. This is the best showing I've seen in a long time.
Let's go back a little bit to P50, Joep Willemsen, because there's a bunch of buzzing hornets side by side. I don't know what happened there with Michael Warman. Might be worth it to go back to a replay of what happened in the infield section, because at one point there was 4 wide cars going over the grass to avoid a very slow driver, Michael Warman, who got completely bogged down, overtaken by a bunch of other drivers.
We'll come back and take a look at that one a little bit later when the action calms down. Coming across, getting credit for leading the first lap. It is indeed Torres. They are single file. Quintilier, Thyssen, Pajan, and Swanke round out your top 5. Those top 5 try to pull away from the next half, but they cannot. Hampson hanging in there. Stevens, Fike, Pinot, they all work their way through the center S. Is still very close.
It's basically a whole train until they reach P12. Nicolas Berger, he is the first one who cuts off from Stef Veenhoven. So you have basically the whole pro field with Daniel Juan in the top 12, and then Stef Veenhoven, he's P2 in the M category, and he's leading the second pack.
That's right, he is all by himself. The only amateur hanging on to that front group was indeed Daniel Juan.
Stefan van Opstal is the first driver coming in for a pit stop. Now that's way too early to already come into the pits. What has happened with him exactly? He has some damage apparently.
Let's go ahead and talk to Adam. When he comes in, Adam, I imagine he's going to have damage. See how long he's in there, if it's a regular stop or if he's going to stay a little bit longer.
Yeah, no, he was only in the pit lane for 30 seconds, so I believe that he... Oh, he's parked it. He's parked it. He's came to a halt, and he's decided to take the tow. His toe was way off. His steering wheel was about 30 degrees to the left when he came into the pits, and so I guess the pit crew couldn't finish the work, and so he's just decided to take the tow.
An early day. Up front, you can see him coming right at you. The train is still single file, begins to stretch out a little bit. As they come out of the final corner now, let's see how this plays out. Let's see what type of racing line Torres takes. Does he protect the inside? Does Quintier want to take the lead? Johan, I guess Gianni knows he's not going to go anywhere. It's kind of pointless to make the pass. Stay back there, be a little faster. Let's see how it plays out.
Yeah, he's completely hooked in the draft though, and this will at least help him save some fuel. That's a very important aspect, and I think that Torres probably noticed that going around in Donington when he was dominating the first stint of the race and then completely fell back at his pit stop because he had a longer pit stop than Sonny Kenshin. Quintier is more than happy to stay behind him, however, although I see Torres blinking a little bit on my screen. That's not that good news for the drivers behind him who might want to fight with him. It's difficult with a car blinking in front of you. Marcelo Pagnan, Nick Thiessen, and Travis Swanky, all these drivers, the top 5 distancing themselves a little bit from David Hampson in P6. Very happy to be under a blanket. No moves really as they go towards Descida do Lago. And all seem content to be single file for now.
You saw Pajan make the pass going into one as he was able to get around Thyssen, moves up into that 3rd position. They are beginning to lose touch with David Hampson. Though Hampson's pretty sneaky. He's sneaky fast, so he just may be staying back there close enough to be in the draft, far enough back to stay out of trouble if anything happens in the front 5 that can cause issues. With that said, Hampson now gets right up on the back of Schwenke. With things settling down up front, why don't we go ahead and check in on our top amateur? Let's look at that one. It is Daniel Juarez Juan. He is in that front train in 11th.
Yeah, and he basically fell back to the rear of that train at this point. We were mentioning there were 11 pro drivers with him and only 1 amateur driver, and he's thinking, let those pro drivers battle it out on their own. I'll just fall back and see where it goes. Only Nicholas Berger is just behind him. Now he's just behind Jordi Fike as well. And all these drivers are still quite close together, although it almost seems like it's breaking off in front of him. Jean-Francois Penoy seems to be losing the connection a little bit, Bill, to Kip Stevens in front.
They are working lap number 3. Let's go ahead. We talked about the excitement that was going on the first lap. Let's see if we can dial that up and jump back and see what was going on. This is something that, Johan, look at this! Holy moly!
Yeah, we should basically try to back 20 more seconds because it all started with Stefan van Opsel and Michael Wardman. So try to locate them in the swarm of MX-5s is a little bit difficult. Here they see Michael Wardman. He is going to have contact with Stefan van Opsel and then all hell will break loose. As he tries a move here on the inside of turn 8 and as they hit each other. This will damage, I think, Stefan van Opsel's car, also Wardman's car, and you can see all those cars, all those MX-5s behind them, they want to get by as soon as possible to not lose the draft, and they go 4 wide basically between turn 9 Pinheirinho and Bico de Pato. Very, very wild.
It's a rolling parking lot. That was a great catch, and it continued on for so long, and that's what cost Van Opsel his race. As he came in, you heard him talk to Adam, and his day was over early. Boy, that was a good replay. I'm glad we got to go back and look at that one. Let's go up front and check on the front train. It is now 7 cars deep, back to Kip Stevens, who continues to blink for me.
A little bit of fighting going on in the back of that group. Nicholas Berger and Daniel Jerez Juan are side by side, trying to defend into Bico de Pato. Daniel is. That's our amateur driver, and he's holding up Nicholas Berger, it seems, a little bit for now. Those drivers are battling. Because of that, the gap between Jordi Fike and Daniel Jerez Juan is growing. It's almost a second now. If they keep fighting like this, I think that those 2 drivers might drop off this train.
This is a good race for Fike. He started 10th, hanging in there, but still with the leaders up front. Let's take a peek up. Yeah. Let's take a peek up at Nick Thiessen in 4th position. I believe Travis Swanke is on the prowl here as he moves to the outside. Here comes Swanke going to try. Now, we've seen this. We saw this last night, that the outside line can work if he gets there. Oh, Thiessen has none of that as he comes up in front and stops the Ohio driver in his tracks.
But wasn't Thiessen having none of that? Or was it Travis Swanke just thinking, I don't want to lose the draft
Yeah.
yet. I just want to save a little bit more fuel there. I'm just going to brake a little bit earlier. I think it's a bit of column A, a bit of column B there. In the meantime, in the back of the grid, we saw Daniel and Nicholas fighting just now. Nicholas actually got by Daniel in turn 1. That means that Nicholas Berger is to P11, but at what cost? Because look at how far behind they are compared to Jordi Fike. The gap between those drivers is grown to, let's see, 1.6 seconds. That's out of draft territory, I would almost say. It's going to be difficult for Nicholas and Daniel to work up back to that to lead train that they were just a part of. We're just fighting for position, but now it seems like they have to work together again.
And leading that group out in front in 16th position is our hard charger. That's Maxime Detilly. He races in 16. He is up 5 spots. Right behind him, Holland in battle with Vilmanson. Verts, Key, and Wortman back there in 21st position. Great racing going on a little farther back.
Yeah, some great battling is going on with Hugh Willemsen, who doesn't want to be overtaken by Derek Holland, tries to get him back, but that gives Maurice Verts the opportunity to take a little look on the outside of Pinheiro. Mikey Key as well being a part of that. Who is being overtaken into Bico de Pato. That is by Michael Wardman. Several drivers. This almost reminds me a little bit of all those MX-5 fighting lap 1, trying left and right on the infield to win some positions.
Well, that's going on. There was a pass for second as Marcelo Pajan got around Gianni Quintelier. That was in Jucan coming out, but now not giving up the ghost. Look at this. Thiessen is now working on Quintelier. Quintelier trying to come back on Pajan.
Yeah, but he doesn't want to take that position though. I mean, at this point of the race, Bill, I would say that the positions of Marcelo and Gianni are probably the best positions that you can be in this train. You're close enough to the front that you don't have to worry about something happening in front of you that will make you lose the draft, but at the same time you're not so far up front that you will lose all that fuel saving opportunity you have. I think these two drivers are the golden opportunity going forward to the rest of the race. Nick Thiessen and Travis Swanky of course also can save a little bit of fuel. They are more in danger of maybe something happening in front of them. They have to take some avoidance maneuvers and that will lose them the draft. Marcelo Pagnang, however, he's taking a little look in the inside, and that's mostly, I think, because Torres is starting to blink more and more. Taking a little look in the inside there, the Italian. Suddenly Torres blinked back, luckily for him. This is difficult, trying to follow a leader that's not always there.
Little by little, Pajan has worked his way 1 car at a time. Now he sits up in second. Our train is now only 10 cars long. Jordi Fike is the caboose as we have lost Nicholas Berger. He's fallen back there with Daniel Juarez Juan. They race for 11th and 12th together. I think they've lost touch though.
Let's go a little bit further down the grid. Jean-Marie Fougou in P22, I think that is. He's fighting with Jeroen Oersem. Now this is a 4-car battle. Basically the last few drivers on the grid, Frans Janssen and Trip Smith, are a part of that as well. Now this group was just under a blanket before the infield section. In the infield section actually stretched out a little bit. But some good racing going on here as well between these 4 drivers. And especially Jean-Marie, who had a horrible lap 1, spun around, had a horrible start, is fighting his way forward, currently driving around P22.
It's really a shame that we cannot focus more of our attention back on these guys in the back because they put on as good a show as the guys up front. And let's go up front as we have a pass for the lead. Pajan, oh, look at this. Pajan gets him in a technical set. No, he got him down the front straight.
Yeah, we'll go to a replay of that, but he indeed used the draft to get a position from Damasus Torres, and that's probably because Pagnang was seeing all the blinking happening in front of him. I want to get in front of that. You can see him here making the overtake over the start-finish straight. Good run out of Jungao, and that was all he needed with the draft to get by his Spanish rifle. Behind him, Gianni Quintelier cannot find a way past. He seems content in P3. Nick Thiessen as well in P4, right behind them. And it's still a 7-car train, though, I have to say, with Kip Stevens being the red lantern holder of that group. Jean-François Penoy is falling a little bit further behind. Same can be said for Christophe Sanchez and Jordi Fike, although once they reach the infield section, everyone bunches up a little bit more.
Yeah, I felt the same way, but when they get to this technical section, they seem to get there. Look at those last 2 cars. We can go back and look at this. This is Nicholas Berger and David Royers Juan. These guys have been putting on quite a show. They swap position 4 or 5 times. I'm not sure if they're racing or just trying to swap to see if they can get up on the back of Jordi Fike. He's got 2 seconds gap between Fike and Berger.
Yeah, they're trying their hardest, but I remember a few laps ago when the overtake just happened, the gap was 1.6 seconds. The gap now is 2 seconds, especially here. Once they do the full throttle section, the gap is only going to increase more and more. So I think that slowly but surely, Nicolas and Daniel are losing the connection they're having to the cars in front. Now, they don't have to worry about Stefanov behind him. Stefanov is the P2 driver in the amateur category. He's P13 overall. He's driving a little bit in no man's land. He's quite a way behind Daniel. The current gap is around 5 seconds. He's also 5 seconds in front of John Miller, who's driving around the P14. So not having anything to fear from the drivers behind Nicolas and Daniel. They can fight it out, work together, try to get the position back, or try to get the connection back to the top 10.
We look at that battle back there for 14th right now. That's Miller on the inside, making the run, getting the momentum to work. That's Bjorn de Forge trying to get a go. They race side by side, continuing through the Senna S's. This is what I talked about. Great racing all the way through the grid. It's a shame we cannot have like 4 different cameras, one on each group, because the racing is just as exciting back here from 14th. Even more exciting than it is up front, who behave a little better when they know they're racing for the win.
Yeah, looking at them at the moment, I haven't seen a group of cars this behave. They're all single file, neat and tidy. You can almost put a pencil line through them and you will hit all the drivers. They're completely tidy there as they reach the infield section. However, David Hampson, Kip Stevens, Spenna, all of them are slowly catching up here, still under a blanket. At this point of the race, Bill, I would almost say that Domas Torres, would he have learned a little bit from Donington last time, do you think? Does he know that you have to save a little bit of fuel being behind Pagnan? Is it such a better thing at this point?
I think that's very much the case. And boy, do I love that camera angle, that wide shot showing the entire train. You can see him coming at you, going right by you now. That's a good look. I think that's exactly right. There is no reason to lead up. Whoa, as he goes a little bit wide, he's going to lose one spot. That's going to be a lot of momentum. He's going to pay the price for this one for a long time, because here comes Nick Thyssen as, boy, that car begins to blink.
And this was what I was mentioning with, you want to be up front of this group, because small mistakes like this doesn't necessarily mean that Torres will lose the draft, but drivers like Swanky or Thyssen might lose the draft because of this. Torres stays in front of them, however, and it means that all the drivers behind them have to bunch up under braking here for the Senna S's. Everyone gets single file again. They're probably close enough to not lose the draft, but moments like this can cost it. If we go to a replay of what exactly happened with the Domas Torres, it's a little run down here towards Shungao, just trying to take too much speed with him through the corner, it almost seems like. Just understeering off the track, and it's very easy to do in basically any car that you're driving at Interlagos. That cost Domas Torres 1 position. Jenny Couturier now in P2. He's haunting Marcelo Pagnan very close.
Yeah, you know, and Thyssen had visions of maybe getting around Torres, and is always tempting to be able to pass the pole sitter. Probably not in his best interest right now. You don't want to lose touch with the 2 cars up front, especially Marcelo Pajan leading the way. He's quick, qualified 3rd, but if they're not careful, those 2 drivers could pull away. So probably the best thing that could have happened to Thyssen and Schwenke and Hampson is go ahead, let the pole sitter stay in 3rd and get you caught back up. And that's exactly what happens.
Absolutely. With 9.5 laps in the books, it is almost time for the pit stops to happen. We had some fuel calculation going on at the beginning of the race. Expect to have the fuel window opening around lap 9, lap 10. So drivers can now start to think about coming in for their pit stop. Maybe they're thinking 1 or 2 of our team go in for a pit stop now on our pace alone. We are quicker. We can maybe gap ourselves to the rest of the field once they come in.
And what it does, right now, Marcelo Pajan doesn't have to race full throttle because he's not going anywhere. But once one of the drivers peels off, that puts the pressure on the guy leading the train to run some hot laps. You don't want to be undercut from somebody pulling off and running faster laps, especially if they can get some partners to race with them. Let's go back to 7th position. This is Stevens being challenged by Pinot. Pinot's going to get that spot.
Yeah, Stevens was more than happy to let Pinot get that spot. It almost looked like he let off of the throttle a little bit going over start-finish straight. And they have to work together because the gap between them and David Hampson in front is starting to grow a little bit too big for my liking, especially if you want to stay in the draft. Can be safe for Sanchez and Fike, because if Stevens and Pinot basically get the connection back to that group in front of them, I think that Sanchez and Fike are officially dropped from the top 10 battle.
Hate to jump around so much. I want to go back to 20th. This is a nice battle between a couple W's here. Maurice Wirtz and Michael Workman. Oh, Wirtz is going to get loose. Is going to open it up for Workman. He's going to get under. Workman's going to get underneath. They're going to go side by side as they head down into 3. This will be fun.
Great racer there. Maurice Wirtz got him on the start-finish lane, but just went way too deep into the Senna SS. Overshot it and had a poor run out of that. They're very close as they go to the run towards the Interlagos, almost touching each other under braking. But it is Michael Wardman getting that position. He is now driving around P20.
And that allowed Fugu, Jean-Marie, to get back into the mix as well. Great three-car battle back there to stay inside the top 20. Nothing going on up front. They race single file. Do they all pit at the same time? Well, we'll find out soon enough. Good battle for 14th. This is Bjorn de Forsch and John Miller. These guys have been going at it for a while. Both AM drivers. No, let me correct myself. Miller's a pro driver.
Yeah, Miller's a pro driver, Bjorn de Forsch is an M driver, but they've been fighting like absolute pros the whole race. Basically, they were with the two of them all race long after the start happened. They're being caught up by the drivers behind. Maxime de Tilly, Hugh Willemsen, who is currently overtaking Derek Holland. That's for P17 behind them. Derek Holland, who had a horrible run through Shinkao. I think all these drivers are bunching up slowly but steadily together. So this will be a 5-car train for P14.
Yeah, Holland happy to let Willemsen go by. There's this kind of dancing back there to see if they can run up on de Tilly and maybe get onto Miller as well.
Sorry, let's go to the lead because a lot of overtaking going in. Gianni Cantelier completely losing their out to a bunch of drivers. Nick Thiessen overtook it. Some heavy battling going on, yeah. Yeah,
he was in second. Now he falls back into 4th position.
And this can be... Oh, yeah, go ahead.
We'll take another look at it. You saw it. Here we come on replay.
Yeah, we could see here, yeah, some fighting going on with Torres and Panyang, and that actually meant that Quintilier got a bit hung out to dry there. Good run from Thiessen to get a position, and that move from Thiessen actually might be indicative that he's actually thinking about taking a pit stop. Once you are planning to make your pit stop, you want to move as far up the group as possible so you lose less time compared to your competitors. Nick Thiessen is currently in P3. He's actually trying to do a move on the outside there of Mergulio. That's another place that you see in a lot of overtakes. Great run from him, and now Torres is almost losing connection to Pagnan in front of him. Torres goes right through Shinkao. That again he goes right. We saw him do that a few laps ago as well. You can immediately see that Thiessen is going to profit from that. He's swarming all over them, trying to get every little bit of draft that he can to increase his speed. Look at Pagnan in front of him. He's just driving away. The gap between Pagnan and Torres is 0.7 of a second. It's going to increase if the drivers are fighting like this. One of the top 3 is actually coming into the pits. They're still side by side. Who will come out on top as they come out of the Senna chicane? Under braking now, it's Thiessen around the outside.
Yeah, you can see the Thiessen really trying to turn up the wick right now as he becomes more aggressive. Could not get that pass done as the Spaniard was able to hold him off. Quintilier back there in 4th. Swanky, very quiet in 5th. You know, we haven't talked about the back half of the train very much. Let's tell you what's going on back there in 6th. That's Pinot, Kip Stevens, Christoph Sanchez, and then the caboose the entire time back there in 9th. It's the Sheriff, Jordy Fike, doing a great job of hanging in there.
One car is missing from that group, and that's the car that we just saw standing in the pits. David Hampson, he's coming out, driving around the Senna chicane as we speak. Coming out, where is he actually coming out? He's right behind Hugh Willemsen, so that means that David Hampson is currently sitting at P17. Now, that also means that David Hampson, probably at the end of this lap, will be catching the draft of Hugh Willemsen, Derek Holland, Maxime de Tilly, and Bjorn de Forsch. That will help him get some extra speed over the start-finish section, help them get rid of the slower cars quickly, and that means that David Hampson might not lose that much time with his pit stop.
Honestly, that's probably not the worst case. You never like to come up behind slower traffic, but right now he can use them as a tow, probably run some fast laps. And with all the nonsense going up front, this could be good. We'll have to keep an eye on Hampson when the big names start to come in. See how this plays out.
Looking at that lead battle, Torres is losing connection with Pagnan a little bit. He shouldn't fight with Thiessen too much as Quintilier goes very wide through Shinkao. Not wide enough to give Travis Swanky an opportunity to immediately get by, but wide enough to at least hurt him a little bit on his rundown. Nick Thiessen and Torres have to work together because the gap between Torres and Pagnan has grown to over 1 second as Pagnan actually opts in to make a pit stop.
And here they come right now. Adam, what are you looking at as our leader comes in?
I've got Pagnan and Schwenke into the pits right now. They're trying to do the same thing that David Hampson did, and they're most likely going to be going for right side tires. We'll see whether they go up on the jacks. Hampson came in from 6th place and is now P17, so we're looking for a similar thing as Peñan does go up on the jacks and get right side tires. They're probably looking at about 2.1 gallons of fuel added. They can only hold 3.6 in the tank, so this race is really a conservative race for all of them.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, here come Hampson right now. Now, coming out of the pits is Schwenke. Pajan is already out. Pajan is going to come out right next to Detilly. Schwenke's going to get out. Remember, Hampson took that early spot. He's not going to be getting him. Hampson just gets around the car he's fighting with. That is Vilmanson. So it worked out good for Pajan.
Yeah, and it didn't work out for David Hampson. We thought that those drivers might help him get a toe, but the battle with Hugh Williamson that he had going into the Senna S actually hurt him and lost him the connection that he needed with Travis Schwenke. Travis, who went together into the pits with his teammate Marcelo Pañan. They're both out now, and they're, well, basically leading the professional train of all the drivers that have made a pit stop. The real leader out there is still Damascus Torres. He's being hunted by Nick Thiessen, Quintilier, and Jean-François Penoy is now sitting in P4.
All right, but here's the deal. You got your pole sitter out in front right now. Now, the tire's a little older, but the gas tank is a little lighter. This might be the case where Torres, he's got no traffic in front of him. The pole sitter can do some hot laps. It'd be interesting to see the lap times between Torres and Pajan, who's on the other side of the track.
Absolutely. I mean, to be honest, none of these drivers in the top 5 should make a pit stop at this point. Torres is probably the quickest one on raw pace alone, so he can do it himself, and the rest should maybe follow his draft. Quintilier is not listening to me. He immediately comes in for his pit stop. He's the only one, it seems like, that actually comes in from the lead group yet.
I'm with you on this one. I'm sitting on the back of the pole sitter right now and let him do his stuff. As here he comes. Adam?
Yep, Quintilier is in, and it looks like he has not gone up on... Okay, there he goes up on the jacks. Another thing to note, guys, is that the track has dropped by about 7 degrees since the start of the race, so these new tires are really going to give them purchase when they get back out on the track. 28.3 seconds in the pit lane.
The gap from Pajan to the leader, 24 seconds. There we can see he comes out. Quintilier comes right out with him.
Yeah, and that might help Travis Schwenke as well. Travis Schwenke was basically dropped from Marcelo Pañan. Of course, those teammates, well, once you get racing for the win, you're not going to wait for each other. But with Yannick Quintilier coming out right between them, he actually might be the stepping stone that Travis Schwenke needed to catch up to his teammate once again. These 3 drivers will now draft basically a no man's land. The driver in front of them is Stef Veenhoff, but the difference between Stef and Marcelo is almost 6-7 seconds, so he doesn't have to worry about Stef Veenhoff appearing anytime soon. They can now work together to drive quick lap times, or at least as quick as possible compared to Damascus Torres, who's still out in front.
I want to go to 6th position real quick. He talked about stepping stones. This is Jordy Fike. What happened to him, the poor guy, he lost all the stepping stones between him and the guys up front. And now the gap is there, not because Jordy did anything wrong. They just bailed and took pit stops. So I think Jordy's going to lose touch.
Yeah,
here comes Thiessen.
Yeah, I want to say, Jordy, if you can listen to me, go inside. Because if you miss your stepping stone, you need to come in and hope that you can catch up with the drivers who've already made a pit stop. He's doing that. Nick Thiessen as well, he's also coming into the pits. Nick Thiessen, of course, was one of the drivers sitting on provisional podium position. Let's see where Nick Thiessen especially comes out, because he was right in that battle with Marcelo Pañan, Yannick Quintilier, and all those other drivers. They are streaming across start-finish line now. As Nick Thiessen now gets underway, I think Nick Thiessen will get completely hung out to dry there, Bill.
Boy, he is way back because he's just leaving, and it's a long time before he can get back on the track. Yeah, Pajan is long gone. So Pajan and Quintilier race in 7th and 8th right now, as they wait for the rest of the field to come into pit. Torres continues to stay out there and hot lap.
Look at Quintilier, he's very quick compared to Marcelo Pañan. He almost had the overdrive because of the draft to try and move it to the Ciudad del Lago. He thought the better of it. He wants to see where he shakes out once Torres, once Peno, once Stevens, once Sanchez, all those drivers coming for their pit stop as well.
And now they have lost touch with the pole sitter as Torres pulls away. The interval between Torres and Pajan about 23.5 seconds. That's the bogey time. Oh, Johan, the rest of these guys have to come in, even if they're not out of fuel. Pino, Stevens, and Sanchez all have to come in, or they're going to lose touch.
Absolutely. They already lost touch with Dameses Torres. So if you lost touch with the leader, then at least make your pit stop now and hope that you're right in that battle with those other drivers that you were just with. That's your best hope, to drive some extra quick lap times and work your way up front again.
Leader of all the cars who have pitted is obviously Marcelo Pajan. He races in 7th. Quintilier right behind him. Trying to get in there is Travis Swenke. Swenke is about a second behind those two. Here they come. It is Pino is coming in, as is Kip Stevens. Saying out is Sanchez and Torres. As we look, the interval this time to Pignon is about 23.5 seconds. It doesn't get bigger, it doesn't get less. Here comes Pignon right now as he comes across the finish line into corner number 1. Oh my goodness, Pino's not going to be getting out there. Let's see who he comes out next to. There goes Thiessen, yeah.
Yeah, right next to David Hampson, I would imagine. Just between Nick Thiessen and David Hampson, I imagine. Luckily for him, Kip Stevens is also there. So I think that these 4 drivers, Hampson, Steven, Pinot, and Nick Thiessen, will all bunch up together. While in the meantime, Swenke, Quintilier, and Pagnan will also bunch up together within 2 separate groups.
Yep. Stay on this battle. Look at this one going really wide out there. That is Hampson. They continue to be too wide now as they go into the horseshoe. This time, it'll be a right-hander, and that's going to give the advantage to Hampson.
I retract my statement that they're going to bunch up together, because if they're going to fight like that, they're surely going to lose connection with Pinoy and Nick Thiessen in front of them. Now, luckily for David Hampson, he comes out on top, so he can try to close down the gap to the car in front. But if Kip Stevens is feeling feisty and he keeps battling like that, that's going to hurt both their pace.
Meanwhile, our leader comes out of the final corner. Is it time to come in? As you never really know here, because the racing line takes it right down to pit entry. Is he coming in? Adam, he's coming your way.
That's right, he is coming in. Funny thing is, it looks like he might lose time to Marcello on this pit stop. Here he comes down the pit lane now, and he's rolling into his box. And Marcello is just now exiting the final turn onto the backstretch. Let's see what happens with this pit stop. I believe he's going to take right sides just like everyone else, but he might try to take less fuel in order to save more time on pit road. Let's see what happens here, guys.
John across the start-finish lane right now. Torres has got to get rolling. Of course, he's the pole sitter, so he's in that very far pit stop. There they go. Now, Pajan is by, as is Quintilier. Swenke is also by. Thiessen is rounding out. Torres is going to come out, looks like, right next to Swenke. It's a drag race for third.
It's a drag race for first, side by side as they're going towards Descida del Lago. He actually has to just slot back in P4 overall for Torres. Now, I'm getting some deja vu scenarios from last week here, Bill, with how Torres came out with his pit stop. But last time around, last week at Donington, he actually managed to close down the gap and got by for P1 in the end. So he already had the pole time. I think that with the gap between him and Marcelo Pagnan being less than 2 seconds, he will find the pace to close down the gap and put some pressure on the Italian before the race is over.
Adam, anybody else still to pit?
Nope, that was the last one. Actually, the last one is leaving now. That's Jean-Marie Fogot, and he's just pulling out of the pits right now. That's everybody in and everybody out safely for pit road.
Okay, I want to focus on third position right now because I got a hunch that Torres is not in the mood to sit behind Swenke. He's got a job to do, Johan, and that is to catch Pajan and Quintilier. As fast as Travis Swenke is, I think Torres says, let me do the work here.
Absolutely. Well, I don't think it's a question of mood. I think it's a question of necessity with only 8 laps to go. This is the point of the race that you have to make forward strides. You have to move forward in that group, and P4 is just not sufficient, especially for a driver with the speed of Torres. He has to find his way past Swenke as soon as possible. Quintilier kind of has to work together with Pagnan to try and distance himself from them. Maybe Swenke will put on a little bit of a fight here. He is looking to the inside to defend. No, he's going back to the racing line. Torres right behind him. Under braking, he can make a very late move, but he doesn't this time around. Single file to stay through the San S.
Okay, we better pay some bills right now before things really start to heat up. But I'm telling you, Johan, if things heat up front, I'm going to interrupt. Trips, back marker shout out. Who are you starting with?
I'm starting with, let's see, Michael Wardman. He's the driver in P24, driving a little bit in no man's land. Had some problem, of course, early in the race. Luckily, he can continue. He's driving behind Frans Janssen. That's a driver that we haven't talked a lot about. He's driving around to P23 after starting in P26, winning 3 positions. Well done, Frans. Trip Smith, our namesake for this back marker shout out. He's driving 1 position in front of him, P22, battling a little bit with Frans Janssen. Behind Mikey Key. Mikey Key can be found in P21, winning 4 positions this race. Jean-Marie Fougou had a horrible lap 1, is making some recovery, however. He's driving around in P20. If we go inside the top 20, P90, well, that's being fought over at the moment. Jeroen Oersum can be found there, but he doesn't want to stay P19. He wants to be P18. That's currently inhabited by John Miller the First. Joep Willemsen is the driver in front of him. He's driving in P17. There's 3 drivers that I want to talk about more. Maxime de Tilly, he's driving around in P16, but he is fighting hard with Derek Holland in front of him. And the last driver in the shout-out is Björn de Vos, driving around in P14, winning 2 positions so far this race.
There you have it, Trips back marker shout out. I want to take you to 3rd position. There's an interesting philosophy right now. If you can't pass them,
sorry, Nick Thiessen spins it around in Junção. That is a big move because he was sitting P5 and he went completely out of shape into coming out of Junção. We go to a replay of the incident. Basically what we saw Torres do a few laps ago as well in the first stint. So much understeer and he went completely over the grass on exit, lost all grip, turned his car around, got overtaken by Jordi Fike, so he lost around 4 or 5 positions in the process. You can see it here, just way too wide on the grass, and then all grip breaks away. Luckily for him, he didn't hit anything, any damage.
And while that was going on, right after that, there was a change for the lead as Quintelier made the pass on Pajan, and then I can report, right after that, Pajan had none of it and came back and got the lead back. Here's the pass for the lead, but honestly, Quintelier could hold his breath longer than he could hold the lead there as Pajan got her right back.
Absolutely, but I'm liking what Quintelier is doing because he's showing Marcelo Pagnan like, hey, don't get too comfortable in the P1 position, I'm here as well, and I'm going to do everything that I can to get it away from you. Now, unluckily for Quintelier is that there's another car right behind him, and that's the car of Travis Swanky. He has completely caught up with him. Damascus Torres as well, so it's 4 drivers now fighting for the podium positions. Geoffrey Penoy, he's the driver sitting in P5, but he is far away from Torres, around 4 seconds between P4 and P5.
Yeah, the point I was trying to make there before we had that spin was that Torres was not able to get around Schwenke, had given up that attempt and was just pushing Travis to get going. And sure enough, with the battling going on between Pajan and Quintelier and the pushing from Torres, it's now a 4-car train with the pole sitter in the caboose position back there. This should be exciting as they have 6 laps to go. It'll be 5 as they cross the line this time. The gap between 4th and 5th is about just 4.5 seconds, so really it's a 4-car race right now. Moving to the outside. Now watch Torres, see as he pins Schwenke down, so he has to take a tight entry. Now he moves over, allows Schwenke to get out there. They're going to wait. Look at Schwenke taking it really deep. Wow. Gets into the back of Quintelier. He has to check up. That's going to allow Torres to get a run. Torres now gets on the back of Schwenke. Says, let's go, baby.
And I think that Quintelier has to thank Torres for that little bump he got from Schwenke, because Torres put him under so much pressure immediately on the inside. Decido de Lago, he's pinning him now on the outside, Travis Schwenke. He has the inside, he just has to brake a little bit later now. He does it side by side, going to Decido de Lago, still side by side as they go towards the exit. More momentum on the outside, and this for Travis Schwenke, but the next corner, turn 5. Also, he has the inside. Torres almost edges him out, but still side by side as they go towards Ferradura. Now Travis Schwenke has the inside. He can brake later, put it still side by side in front of him. Quintelier, Payara loving this because they can drive away. Torres still on the outside as we reach turn 7, turn 8. Now he has to give in, go back to single file.
That was some great racing, but Torres is not done yet. Boy, Torres had Schwenke pinned behind Quintelier, and Schwenke might try to ease Torres over so that he wouldn't get stuck back there. As it ends up, there was no pass made. Pajan saying, you go boys, you just fight it out, I'm out here racing.
Absolutely, and it's going to be interesting to see how Quintilier and Marcelo Pagnan are driving, because if they're going single file, then one of these two drivers can actually choose to, for example, stay on the racing line but stay in the draft. That might be enough to stay in front. That might be an extra defensive weapon that they get. Coming out of Schungau this time around, the gap between Travis Swanky and Quintilier in front, well, it's quite big. There's enough that he has a little bit of draft, but not too much. And that might give Torres another opportunity as they're coming now through Arquibancadas, through turn 15. Onto the start-finish straight. He is not close enough to put it side by side yet. A little bit too far to try and move it to the center S. Is it a little bit too far? Will he try a dive bomb? No, this time around he stays behind him.
And let's jump you back to the group right behind him back there, as these guys are really fighting up in front, trying to make it work on the high side. That is Hampson now. Here comes Pignot behind him.
I thought Pinot was safe. He had quite a sizable gap to the other two a few laps ago, but he has been caught up and actually losing to position now. Kip Stevens trying to make it 3 wide. What a beautiful move from the new pro driver. First race as a pro driver, he is getting a double overtake out of the center S into the Ciudad del Lago on David Hampson. Great driving from the UK&I driver.
Oh, I'm glad we got that on screen live, because that was pretty from Steve. Nice job. That battle for 5th, they are well behind the front 4, 6.5 seconds back. Let's go back and look at 11th position. This is some fun heating up here as well. Daniel Juarez won, and Nicholas Berger. Berger making a run on the high side. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, this was a battle that we saw before the pit stops as well. Then they were broken up because of the pit stops, and now they're back together again. Berger and Jerez Juan cannot seem to distance themselves from each other. Now, of course, Daniel Jerez Juan is the leader in the M category to Stefanoff, and that car that you see in the background, that's just, well, cue the Jaws music, is getting closer and closer. That is Stefanoff. He is likely to see that battle in front of him because he can close down the gap to Daniel Jerez Juan and try to make a move for the win once again in the amateur category.
They continue to race in a second. We're going to jump you up to second position, as I think Travis Swenke has visions of getting around Quintilier. Continue to ride on board. And there goes Schwinke moving to the outside. Again, we've seen this work as they go into one. This wide side can get the momentum as they head down into the center S's. Look at how good Quintilier is under braking. He's able to hold off. Schwinke gets in there. Diving it in now is Torres.
Torres needs a good run out of the center S to try and move it to the Ciudad del Lago. And look at those three, less than a half a car length between them as they come around the exit. None of them tracking wide, all staying single file, trying to get all the whiffs of draft from Marcelo Pagnan. It is Torres trying to take a look on the outside. It's Travis Swanky to try a look on the inside. It is Torres because of that who can try to keep it on the outside for more momentum. Quintilier almost running into the back of Marcelo Pagnan, has to go all the way over the exit of the Ciudad del Lago. Still 3 wide now with Torres trying to thread the needle. 3 wide going towards Ferradura. Marcelo Pagnan is loving this. Who will break the latest? It is Travis Swanky all the way on the outside. More momentum. But it is Torres getting through the middle. Past Quintilier, losing 2 positions in the progress. Still side by side as they reach turn 8. Travis Swanky breaking later, losing control of his car a little bit. Torres gets by. Quintilier cannot profit from that. He has to slump back into P3.
Oh! That's all I have to say to that. What a great job of driving from the Spanish drivers. He went through the middle. He gets them both. Quintilier says, what happened? All of a sudden, I'm in 4th position. All right, now, Sean with a 1 second gap over Torres, but I think Torres has the legs to get him. Go, yo.
Yeah, this is some race-winning driving there from Damaso Torres, because now he is P2. Now he has his eyes set on that Italian in front of him, Marcelo Pagnan. The gap between them is 1 second. Now in qualifying, it was Damaso Torres with a few hundredths of a second quicker than Marcelo Pagnan. That's not going to help him. He needs to use that draft to close down the gap. Travis Swanky, of course, teammate of Marcelo Pagnan, they might actually try to fight a little bit more. And once those two start fighting more, I think it is day over. And I think Marcelo Pagnan can just drive away to the horizon. As they reach the center S, you can see it there. Swanky is not close enough to try and move. Damaso Torres safe and dry as they break. Ooh, actually outbreaks himself there a little bit, Soup. That will hurt him in the chase down towards Pagnan.
You can see the similar paint schemes on the car in front and the car in third. And right now, the last thing that Torres needs is a battle for second right now, and that's exactly what he's got.
I'm getting deja vu moments with Travis Swanky around the outside here. Oh, they touch each other! It is Torres trying to squeeze Travis Swanky way too much there. Hits him on the rear, almost turns him around. What a car control from Travis Swanky there to save that car, not even lose a position.
Yeah, they're talking about eventually Swanky had to turn into the corner, and Torres was saying, you're not going to turn in quite yet. Somehow they managed to keep it all going straight, but they pick up another 2 seconds. Marcelo Pajan on Torres. They'll have to work to get there. They're running out of laps.
They're running out of laps indeed. 1.5 lap to go. It is still Torres in front of Swanky, in front of Quintilier, with Marcelo Pajan in front of everyone. The gap between Pajan and Torres is 1.1 seconds. That gap is not closing down. And with those Travis Swanky and Torres fighting like this, I think that Marcelo Pajan is just looking forward. He doesn't have to worry about an overtake yet going into the center S's this time around.
Okay, things have settled in a little bit, so let's quickly go back into 5th position because this race back here is really intense. Right now, it's Steven, Pignot, and Hampson. We can look at them for a second. They've settled down a bit as they go through the final corner. With that said, our leaders, as they're going to go under for the white flag, they're separated.
You could just see that they're on the screen. Pignot and Hampson completely wide. Kip Stevens will love that. He doesn't have to fear an overtake from those 2 cars behind. Going to the leaders once again. 1 more lap to go. Final lap. It is still Marcelo Pajan. 1.1 second lead to Damaris Torres. Torres 0.2 seconds in front of Travis Swanky. Quintilier is around half a second behind the podium position. He's chewing popcorn and hoping for some drama in front of him to get a position back. But as it stands, Quintilier doesn't seem to have the speed to close down and get a position on race speed alone.
There's just not enough time to make the pass out of the final corner to get to the start finish line right now. If Torres is going to get this one, he's got to get it done through the twisty section, but unfortunately he's just too far back. It's now under a second, but it might be too little too late. Swanky back there looking to see a way around, see if he can get that second position. Torres trying to be as fast as he can, but yet race defensively at the same time. They head down into this horseshoe now. A right-hander that swings around. The gap to the lead, it's down to 0.8 of a second. Is he coming? He is indeed. He's really good through the technical section. Boy, Swanky is doing all he can to pester Torres right now. The gap, let's not use seconds, let's use car lanes now. 3 car lanes, a good drive out through Small Pine from Pinjan. Now they go down into Duckbill. Continuing to close is Torres. He's now back by 2 car lanes. He's coming. They go through into the dive. 1 corner left. I think Torres is too far back unless he gets a really good run or Pajan makes a mistake. Final corner of any significance right now is the left-hander. Now they're on the throttle. Pajan takes it as wide as he can. He's on the gas. He's going up to the pits. Round number 2 here from Interlagos in the MX-5 World Tour Season 17. It's going to go to the Italian driver, Marcelo Pajan. Second place is going to go to Torres. The final podium slot to Swanky, and Quintilier will have to settle for 4th. Let's go back to 5th. This is a fun battle. It looks like it's going to be Stevens, Pignot, and Hampson.
Absolutely, all those drivers still under a blanket, but they are in that order. A little bit further down the field in P15. And that's a battle to keep an eye on because Björn de Vos is trying to get a position from Hugh Willemsen. That's a battle for P15. Maxime Tilly in front of them as well.
Jump you to 11th real quick. They're side by side heading towards the finish line right now. This is Juarez one and Berger, who's going to get it side by side coming in. And it looks like it's going to be Juan by about a few thousandths of a second.
Not unimportantly, that's also the amateur win for Juan there. Congratulations to him. But Björn de Vos behind him is trying a move on Hugh Willemsen around the last corner. He had the draft on the outside. Now he will come just a few meters too short. Björn de Vos coming home P16, and it's Hugh Willemsen in 15.
Miller and Ursum in a battle coming out. Ursum chasing. He's going to run out of time as we see. It's just the start-finish line comes too early. Ursum makes the move, but no, he runs out of time. Miller is going to get 17th, Ursum in 18th.
Let's go back to P22. That's Trip Smith. He is not close enough to Michael Wardman to try gain a position there. But they are a few of the last drivers on the lead lap coming across the start-finish line. Michael Wardman coming home with P21. Trip Smith winning 2 positions here, coming home 22nd.
That's the final car on the lead lap. Holy smokes, the racing is over here at Interlagos, but our broadcast is far from done. We're going to step away, but we'll be back quickly with the Hoisingveld wrap-up, where we'll run down the entire finishing order, talk to some of the drivers before we put a lock on the gate. You're watching GSRC on IESN. Stay close. Welcome back to GSRC and the Hoisingfeld wrap-up for the MX-5 World Tour Round 2 from Interlagos. You know, Hoisingfeld solutions currently being used by countless professional teams and drivers is now within budgetary reach, all without having to compromise on realism and engineering value. They offer advanced vehicle software and hardware able to simulate any combination of race car and track. Be a better race car driver. Get in touch today at hoisingfeld.com. And you know what? We're on the iRacing Esports Network, and we talk about how you can join the community of iRacers. If you're new to iRacing, I got to give you this warning. Don't do what you just saw from Marcelo Pajon, Jaume Torres, Travis Swenke, and Gianni Quintilier. They are professionals. The racing on those last few laps was amazing. If you try that at home and you don't know what you're doing, you're going to end up in the grass. Let's give you the finishing order of the race that just finished up. And it was Marcelo Pajon getting the win. He was able to hold off the rest of the field that were coming at him. Jaume Torres gets second, Travis Swenke third, Gianni Quintilier in fourth. Honestly, if you let that race go another lap, it would have been totally shuffled around. How about Kip Stevens coming out of the amateur class, rounds out your top five ahead of Jean Franquino and David Hampson. Jordy Fike was able to hang onto the back of the train for as long as he could. He's going to get an 8th position, up 2 spots. I think the sheriff's going to be happy with that. Nick Season, probably not. He was racing up front for a while, started 4th. He's going to finish in 9th. Probably not what he was looking for. And then the French driver, Christophe Sanchez, rounds out the top 10. Johan?
First driver outside of it is our winner in the amateur category, Daniel Jerez Juan. He comes home P11 just in front of Nicolas Berger. Now those two drivers basically fought all race long, and even as they came across the start-finish line, only 0.02 of a second between them. Stefanov, he's P2 in the amateur category. He wins 5 positions in this race, classified in P13, just in front of the hard charger, Maxime de Tilly, winning 7 positions in the process, starting P21, finishing P14. Joep Willem started 15th, finished 15th, just as Björn de Vos, no difference there. John Miller comes home in P17 in front of Jeroen Oersem. One of the drivers that was new today, also winning a lot of positions, Mike Key comes home in P19, and the last driver in the top 20, Jean-Marie Fugu.
3 more drivers on the lead lap. Michael Workman in the blackjack position. The double duck spot goes to Trip the Aerosmith, notorious for racing clean. Not the case today for Smith, as he picked up 15 incidents. That's a season worth for him. Franz Janssen comes home in 23rd position, the last car on the lead lap. 4 other drivers were in here. Maurice Wirtz, Derek Holland ran into trouble. Stephen Van Opstroll also had early trouble. And, of course, Joe McDonald didn't take the grid. 26 cars on the grid. We gave you 26 right there. Let's see if we have anybody to interview here today. As we look up, we have nobody. So with that said, Johan, let's talk a little bit about what we just saw and that last lap action. It was, how can I put this without, some might call it questionable within the rules, but boy, it was intense racing going on between those guys.
Yeah, it was amazingly intense to see how close you were almost joking for the new iRacing drivers, how close they were racing together and like, don't try this at home. But you're not completely wrong with how it was, because I've seen moves like this, like the top 4 of the drivers did, happen so many times in races. Usually they end in tears, but these 4 drivers made it work. And not only that, they gave a great show, great performance, great race pace. And in the end, they finished 1.7 seconds from each other. Even if you didn't win there, hats off to all of them, because that was an amazing show that they put here at Interlagos.
So with that, we'd like to thank everybody at the Quality Racing Sim-dicate for organizing this series and contracting with GSRC to broadcast it. Thanks to the sponsors, SimSportsNews.com and, of course, Hoising Film. On screen now are just some of the equipment and software used to screen cyberspace into your place. The original music comes from Eric Ekholm and June Lalonde. See the screen to how to contact each of them. The MX-5 World Tour returns in 2 weeks. We're going to take a week off, but we'll be back for round 3 from Bathurst. GSRC via IESN will be there to bring you all the action. We hope you join us. Next up on IESN, though, is a broadcast, and that is going to be the SRF Weekend Warriors Round 7 from Charlotte. You know, GSRC is going to bring you that one. You can catch all the action starting tomorrow, Sunday at 2:45 Eastern. Sliding across your screen now are some of the upcoming broadcasts on GSRC. Mark those down, catch them on the calendar. If you'd like more information about GSRC, visit GlobalSimRacingChannel.com or check us out on social media, Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. And also, if you haven't done so yet, become a YouTube subscriber by heading over to our YouTube page and hitting that big red button. Finally, on behalf of the entire crew, Johan, Joe, Adam, and Dougie, I'd like to thank all of you for watching as we watch the Italian Marcello Pajan pick up the first win of the season for him here at Interlagos. With that said, we're off to have fun, storm the castle. So until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.